Welcome to the Ben and Walker Movie Show. I'm your co host, Ben Davis, and joined by my other co host, Walker Holt. And we're excited to have a conversation with you about one of our favorite things in the world, horror movies, or at least it's one of my favorite things in the world. If this is your first time being here with us, welcome. We're so glad to have you. And while you're here, be sure to smash that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with all our latest content that we have for you guys. And leave a like because that really helps drive the algorithm for our show, and we want to reach as wide of an audience as possible. So please, if you would do that, that would mean a lot to Walker and I. So usually this would be another one of our regularly scheduled weekly episodes, but given that it is indeed spooky season, um, and you guys know how much I love horror movies, I figured we'd have to do at least two deep dives for you guys. Of course, we're going to do the Halloween special later this month. Um, and today we're going to be discussing one of my favorite guilty pleasure movies, 2003's Freddy versus Jason. But before we get to that, Walker, how you doing today, man? What's up?
I'm good. It is getting to be spooky season. I'm looking at a pumpkin candle holder or jack lantern candle holder next to me, and my neighborhood's starting to get decorating. We need to catch up. We're a little behind. But the weather's starting to turn a little bit. We were just talking about that. It's a nice crisp morning in the 50s. I think it's going to get up to the 70s later, but it's always fun to experience that and have a little pre-noon Sunday with windows open. I'm a big advocate.
Oh,
We're a big windows open family. Um,
nice, nice. See,
so
I do not like windows open. I always
mm,
like it to be a brisk 69 degrees in the house.
mm.
I always like it to be cold in the house and have the AC running. And I just do not like windows being open in my house for whatever reason.
Yeah, it's weird. I've always been a cold house guy. I mean, I'm a big
Yeah.
guy. I like. I mean, I run hot. No, I lost a little bit of weight for my wedding, and I got married in the spring, and leading up to it, I've always liked windows open, but it's got to be the right temperature. It's got to be, I mean, max outside like 70, but 70 is a little hot. 70, I'm like trying to make it
Yes.
work, and it doesn't work. 68, 67 starts to get great. You get a little colder than that, like 65, 64 starts to get a little chilly.
Yeah.
But I've always liked windows. I like the fresh air. I like the breeze. I enjoy it. But so when I was losing weight in the spring, I was windows open during early spring when it was comfortable with it, and I have like the Nest thermostat, and I just had it on eco mode to not go below 64 or above 76 the whole time.
Yeah.
And I just slowly, I don't know what it was. I guess I got like used to it, and I tried to push the windows a little late, like into the spring when it was kind of probably too warm for it, and
Yeah.
uh, and I just never turned the AC back on. And I went through half the summer with the AC at like 76, like just never even. And I'm not that guy. I mean, I've kept it on 68 for years. I've kept it on 70 for
Oh
years,
God.
and I kept it on 76
Dude,
for
I
half
would have
the
been
summer.
sweating my ass off.
Yeah, yeah, I would have too. Normally, I don't know why it was just normal. I guess it was like what losing weight like I quit nicotine a year ago. Then like losing weight was it was drinking less alcohol. I don't know. Maybe it was just running cooler. And but then I started gaining weight again, and I'm back at it, and I need the AC on again. But I'm still at 73. But last night, me and Jess were just playing it all night about how hot it was, so we had to turn it down again.
Listen, if I have a rule, if you come stay at my house, I want people by the end of it to be like wrapped in blankets. Like I want my house to be like frigid, and I want it to
I
be
dig it.
comfortable because I love like having blankets pulled all over me and snuggling in close. That's just that's my thing. I get so uncomfortable when it gets hot inside. And the thing is like I love summer and spring, but it's just inside of a house being hot. It just ugh,
No,
don't like
I,
it.
I think you're right and I'm wrong. Honestly, it almost turned into like a game for me. Like I was almost like I've been able, like, could I do another degree higher? Like, could I stand it even longer? Like, it almost turned into like a competition with myself for some reason. And but I've always been a cold house guy, and I still am. I mean, anytime I go to another person's house, if I can put on a hoodie or something in the house, I'm into it. I love it.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
why I'm being weird now. I keep it pretty cold
I'm
in the
a big
winter. At highest, I'm putting the heat
I'm,
on like 67.
I'm a big hoodie and sweatshirt guy,
No.
so totally understand. Um, you brought up Halloween decorations. I have had my Halloween decorations up for about 2 weeks now,
You
and
sent me a video of them. They're in depth. They're great. I showed them to Jess. She loved them.
yeah, thank you, thank you. Yeah, I have a lot of fun. I'm in charge of doing Halloween. Carly is in charge of doing Christmas. We kind of have a handshake agreement on that. And this year I was a little nervous how Zoe would react to because I like to have it
Yeah, you do it pretty
spooky, you
scary.
know.
You got Billy coming
Yeah,
out of the
I
ground
like
or
to.
Stu. I don't know which one you said it was, but
Yeah, it's Stu coming out of the ground, man, coming back for Scream 7. But no, I was a little nervous how Zoe would react, but she thinks it's funny.
yeah,
So that is that yes, that's a
she's
plus. And my father-in-law sent us because she's obsessed with Mickey Mouse, and it's this inflatable Mickey Mouse that I kind of put toward the driveway, and she is obsessed with it. It's Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, and a pumpkin. She's always wanting to go to the window. And she's like, pumpkin, Minnie Mouse, 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 wanting to look at it, and it's the cutest thing in the world. Uh, and it honestly, it fits the entire aesthetic that I already have with like the purple lights and everything. Because Mickey's in purple, it works, and it makes my daughter happy. So I love it.
good. Good. She's probably at that perfect age where it. I don't know if it would scare her yet. I don't. Is that? Do you think she would be more scared if she was 2 years older of the stuff in the
I think
yard?
so.
Yeah.
I think this next year is the true test.
Yeah.
I think this year she might just not realize what it is because right now, whenever like I have this like winged like skeleton looking creature that's coming out or looks like it's coming out of like a cauldron that has smoke coming out of it, and whenever something moves in front of it, it like laughs and it's like "Mwah-ha-ha-ha-ha." It like lets out this howling scream, and every time it goes off, she's like noise, haha. She like thinks it's really funny.
I remember when I was young. I'm trying to think of the scariest I've been on Halloween. I mean, we went to all the like haunted houses and stuff around the county and everything, and like they were always scary. I
Yeah,
think I have an appropriate
Clayton
relationship with
Fear
those.
Farm was always a really cool one.
Yeah, they're scary, but but I
Yeah.
would do them. And then, but I remember when I was a little younger, the Fletcher house between Spencer and like your neighbor, the house that's right next door to Spencer on the
Yeah.
other side of me.
Yeah.
They used to have the guy. He would sit on his front porch on Halloween with a Jason mask on with a chainsaw,
Yep. I remember
and
that.
he would remove the blade from the chainsaw, but he would run the chainsaw. And when I was like 5, 6 years old, going up to, I mean, I it really scared me. I think we skipped that house for several years after that. That it was so scary, and it's funny to think of now as an adult. Like you'd look at it and be like, "Oh, that's creative, that's clever, good, that's a good one." But back then, it was like, I mean, very scary.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, you're
The
5 years
chainsaw
old,
without the
5-year-old
blade
kid.
is like a cheat code though, because then you're like, "Is that real? Stop!" Like I don't want to touch that. Like it starts.
Yeah.
They would do that in the haunted houses sometimes too. It's like that really cranks up the volume when you have a chainsaw near you spinning that just doesn't have a
Yeah.
chain on it.
I I remember that house, and I dressed up for Batman several years in a row, and like Terminator, so I always had to like get into character. But
Mhm.
yeah, I think if I weren't quote in character, it probably would have freaked me out. Had to put on my tough boy face, you know.
Yeah.
And speaking of putting on our tough boy face, you know, with us talking about this movie today that features, you know, these two horror icons and Freddy and Jason, I figure before we do a deep dive into these films, it might be a little fun to discuss our personal relationship with these two larger than life pop culture figures. You know, having said that, Walker, what is your relationship with these characters, and do you think they've endured over the years, or do you think that they've kind of aged out?
Um. So I guess this is a good way to start. I mean, so horror is not my favorite genre. I mean, that's. I mean, I like.
No.
Yeah, my wife loves horror. My podcasting co-host loves horror. It's not my favorite. I mean, I get scared. I don't enjoy jump scares. I That being said, there's some like elite horror movies that I really enjoy. You know, like just the best. I mean, and some of this stuff is kind of like teeters on the genre. You know, like Jordan Peele stuff on whether it's that like thriller, horror. You know,
Yeah.
but just the straight up. I mean, even it's not even straight apart. I mean, I love Scream, but that's even kind of like a deeper kind of thing on its own. And I have seen Nightmare on Elm Street, the original Freddy Krueger movie, but I haven't seen it in probably 20 years. I probably saw it when I was in middle school. I think I probably liked it. I probably didn't respect it or appreciate it yet. It was probably too old, and I was too young at the time to really give it a go. You know, it was probably in that weird, hard to take it seriously and hard to respect, like where it came from type of thing.
Yeah.
So I'd like to rewatch that. I imagine I would like that movie, and that's it. I have never seen Nightmare on Elm Street 2, 3, 4, 5. Never seen Friday the 13th 1, 2, 3, and none of them. Zero. My knowledge of Jason is he wears a hockey mask. I said chainsaw earlier because that guy on that porch uses chainsaw. I think that's just Texas Chainsaw. I mean, does he just use the machete in
It's
every
Texas
movie?
Chain. Pretty much. I mean, he uses whatever's around him, but
Yeah.
machete is usually his go to weapon.
I find Freddy Krueger a more interesting character between the two of them.
Yeah.
As far as how they've aged, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think they could. Freddy Krueger's an interesting. If you can make that work, if you could continue that series with I don't know intention and creative ideas and things, I think you could make Freddy Krueger still work today. And think Jason. I mean, sure, but I mean, it's hard for me to differentiate Jason from Michael Myers. You know, and I think I love the first Halloween. I think we differentiate on that opinion. And I liked the
Mm.
remake of the first remake, or the most recent Danny McBride version. But
Damn it, Bride,
it's hard
David
for me to
Gordon Green.
differentiate Jason from that, and I kind of think Michael Myers has been played out, so it's kind. I don't know. I mean, I have very little experience with him. This is the second movie I've ever seen, and the first as an adult, and definitely the first I remember.
Yeah, it's kind of like a blank spot for you as a movie fan.
Yeah, yeah, it is the
And
whole
and
horror
honestly,
genre.
that
I
makes
haven't seen like
yeah,
Poltergeist
that makes
or
sense because
Close Encounters or any of those. Like a lot of classic movies.
well, I
I've
wouldn't
seen
put
some
Close
'90s
Encounters
stuff.
necessarily in the horror
Okay,
category,
okay.
but yeah, I mean, if you don't like the genre, then yeah, it's going to be a blank spot for you,
Hmm.
especially with these characters. If you're not really into them, I feel like these characters for me have kind of always been a part of my life, even before seeing any of the films. I always remember them being here and being present and going on fishing trips with my dad and his best friend and my brother and just peppering them with questions about horror films that I hadn't seen because this is a genre that I was really curious about when I was growing up, but in particular it was about these two characters that I've seen even though I hadn't seen any of the movies, and I'm pretty sure I saw Friday the 13th first, I think around fall of 2003. I'm very good with dates. Very weird about dates. Having rented the first three with my brother and us watching them in our game room together and really enjoying them as a kid. I never really found them scary per se, but I enjoyed the kills, It wasn't until later that I watched, my first standalone emphasis on the word standalone that comes in later, Freddy movie, which was actually the second film that I watched, not the first film.
Hmm.
And the first movie I did a podcast on back in October of 2020 with my cousin's husband David, which is fun to do. If you want to dig through the podcast feed, you can find that.
Oh my
So yeah,
god.
I saw like the second movie first in the Nightmare series, so Freddy's Revenge, and then I caught back up on the franchise altogether, both of them in fall of 2005, when I just became obsessed with horror films. And I think over the years, these films have just been, fun movies to revisit. They're not all good. In fact, I'd argue a lot of them aren't that great. But even the bad ones have like this charm to them that I always find myself, especially this time of year, just wanting to do like a deep dive on these franchises because they're really fun horror movies. And I think that's why they've endured over the years. There's a bit of tongue in cheek to a lot of the movies, not all of them, but a lot of them, that I think allows us as an audience to really disassociate the violence we're seeing on the screen from real life violence, because these characters are so big and they're so over the top. They have so much personality, especially Freddy. I think in the era we're in right now, I do think it's very possible we see these characters again down the road, like with that announcement we talked about on one of our shows with the Camp Crystal Lake TV show. But I do think with the character like Freddy Krueger being so iconically portrayed by Robert England, that one might be tougher. Lord knows what we've seen what it would look like if they get it wrong, and that's no disrespect to Jackie Earl Haley when he did the remake in 2010. I thought he was good. He was really good, but that movie is poor, poor, and that's putting it lightly. But regardless of if we'll see these characters down the road, I think these characters will, live on because to me they're just so iconic, and they're as iconic as the universal monster characters like Dracula, Frankenstein, Invisible Man, Creature from the Black Lagoon. They are the Mummy. They're up there.
Sure, I agree. I definitely think they're
Yeah.
iconic. I think they're gonna be. I mean, the Frankenstein, Dracula, those monster universe people, and then or monsters, and then I mean, I think I mean already, but especially in years in the future, these are going to be the characters that people think back on of classic things like we do. Then, I mean, even if they haven't, I don't know. I agree, they're iconic. I mean, when I think of horror movies, and I haven't even seen any of these movies, when I think of horror movies, especially from like previous decades, I mean, they're going to come to mind every time. They're
Yeah.
going to come to mind before because they're big characters too. I mean, I definitely don't think the movie. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of the movies except for the original Nightmare, and it's been too long. And I saw this movie, and regardless of what you think of the movies, the characters are recognizable. They people have heard of them. I mean, I don't even know what else. I mean, they're great. I mean, they have a place in
Yeah,
horror history.
they absolutely do. They absolutely do. And they mean a lot to a lot of people, especially I think to our generation. I think the generation after us, they might not be as iconic, but to people who grew up in the 80s, which we both didn't, but people who grew up in the 90s, which we both did, they're kind of ingrained in our psyche a little bit, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
But moving on to our main event today, we're going to be doing a deep dive on, like I said, Freddy vs. Jason, which just celebrated its 20th anniversary this past August. Which, again, I'm always saying this, but it blows my mind that this movie is 20 years old. Like, it does not feel that long ago.
Yeah, that always surprises me too. Especially 20 is the number too. Once you get into the 90s and you get to 30, I'm starting to come to grips with that's pretty old. But the early 2000s feels like
Yeah.
6 years ago.
Yeah. Like 2003. Like, what? It
Yeah.
doesn't feel
You
that
can
long
almost
ago.
drink if you were born in 2003. That's insane.
Yeah, that's you were born in 2003. That's not real.
What are you, one?
So, yeah, Freddy vs. Jason is directed by Ronnie Yu and stars Robert England, Ken Kazinger, Monica Monica Keene, I believe is how you pronounce that. Kelly Rowland, Jason Ritter, Chris Marquette, Lachlan Monroe, Catherine Isabel, and Brendan Fletcher. If you aren't familiar with the plot synopsis of Freddy vs. Jason, it reads like such according to Google. Two horror icons face off in a supernatural movie. Disfigured serial killer Freddy Krueger, who attacks his victims in their dreams, has lost much of his power since citizens of his town have become less afraid of him. Enlisting the help of fellow violent murderer Jason Voorhees, Freddy orchestrates a new killing spree. However, when the hockey mask wearing psychopath won't stop chopping up Freddy's intended victims, two ghouls start to battle each other. Yeah, don't get in the way of his victims. Um, so here's the thing, as fans, we often find ourselves, sitting around a water cooler and pitting our favorite characters against each other to ask the age-old question, who would win in a fight? And there's several examples. You have Batman versus Iron Man, Rambo versus the T-800, Superman versus Hulk, John Wick versus Liam Neeson's character from Taken, Han Solo, Indiana Jones, James Bond versus Jason Bourne, Voldemort, Palpatine, Darth Vader, Thanos. The list can go on, But and to be fair, we've had a few of these over the years with movies like Batman v Superman, Civil War, Godzilla versus Kong, several iterations of that, and Alien versus Predator movies. However, if you were to ask any horror fan in the 80s and 90s, Freddy versus Jason always was at the top of their list. Freddy versus Jason was one of those ideas that just seemed like the ultimate conclusion for both these characters and both these franchises, considering they're both horror icons from the 1980s, and both franchises had really, run their course with, Friday the 13th franchise having like 10 movies in entries, or 10 entries prior to this. And then Nightmare on Elm Street had 7 movies, and then had a TV series titled Freddy's Nightmares, which was like 2 seasons long, with a lot of build up, teasing the matchup at the end of Jason Goes to Hell, which came out in like 93, and then more than 15 screenwriters taking a crack at the story. These two horror juggernauts would eventually clash in the summer of 2003. So, Walker, we already know this. You saw Freddy vs. Jason for the first time, like, just when?
Last
Last
night.
night?
Last night.
Yeah. So, what are your thoughts, and how does it compare less than 24 hours later?
All right. My first thought
I'm
is,
excited.
what did the first 14 screenwriters write that were worse than this? I did not like this movie. I'm not saying anything about the characters
I
in general. I think the characters are probably, I mean, I don't have the experience or the education or the like history watching these characters to really know them on a personal level. I I would like to go back. I said to my wife last night, I'd like to go back and watch Nightmare on Elm Street again and Friday the 13th, the first one, and just to get a foundation that's from an adult's perspective and a film critic's perspective and get it. This one
well,
didn't
I
work
will
for
say
me.
this: if you're going to watch Friday the 13th, well, I don't want to spoil it for you, but I would watch more than the first one to get a feel for Jason.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This one didn't do it for me. I mean, again, I'm trying to not disconnect the schlocky charm that comes with it. That's kind of like a
It's campy.
self-awareness that probably comes with the movie. Yeah, campiness. I can appreciate that occasionally. This one just didn't. I mean, I did not enjoy it.
Color me shocked.
Yeah.
Color me shocked. I'm sorry I put you through this, man. This was
Oh
totally
no,
my call.
no. Hopefully, it'll make for a good
Look,
conversation. I think we're going to be on two different ends of the spectrum, which will make a. I mean, I'd love to. I'd
and we're
like you
going
to
to be on
change my
two
mind.
different. Well, the thing is, we're going to be on two different ends of the spectrums, but however, we're going to agree on a lot. I'm sure.
Yeah.
So, unlike you, the first time I saw Freddy vs. Jason was at the Parkwood Carmike Cinema when I was at the tender age of
Mm,
9.
Parkwood
Just kidding.
Circle.
No, I didn't see this movie when I was 9. No, that's really
No.
That might be a little too young. The first time I saw Freddy vs. Jason was just a few months later when it released on DVD in January of that year, and I remember sneaking down to my game room in the middle of the night, and I ordered it on pay per view to watch it. I did that with a lot of movies. I got in trouble a lot doing that as
That's
a
a power
kid.
move. I used to do that too. Like this is
Yeah.
they won't even notice.
They won't even notice Bill later. And then my mom goes, Ben, what are you doing writing this movie? This is too violent. And my dad would kind of be like, yeah, you shouldn't. And then he kind of laugh under his breath. But, fun fact, while this was my fourth Jason movie, because I watched the first three with my brother, it was my first Freddy movie. It was my first Freddy movie. I'd never seen any of his movies. And for almost 10-year-old me, let me tell you, this movie didn't disappoint. And it had everything I could have wanted from a movie like this at the time. It was gory, it was violent, scary, fun, and the heavyweight matchup between these two guys, it didn't disappoint at all. And for an introduction to Freddy, this was really cool because it's kind of his movie. It's kind of his movie, and this is what led me to watch, just a few months later, the second one, which I have no idea why I watched the second one first. I probably just didn't have access to the first one. I think I watched the first one again, probably around 2005 when I was starting to really get into the horror vibe. This would go on to become, one of those movies that I had on all the time because it was always on Stars and Encore.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
like it was always like one of those cable movies that I had on all the time. But over the years, because uh, I watched it so many times, I kind of just forgot about it, and revisiting it for this podcast, man, this movie is like a time capsule of the early 2000s, chock full of character stereotypes that are awful, rave music, and a hard rock album. I can't
Yeah, the
deny this
title
movie.
card with the hard rock was immediately like, okay, I see what we're doing.
I bet you were like, damn it, Ben, why are you making me watch this? But I can't deny this movie is it's so dated in parts. However, I can't deny that this movie still has that charm that really appeals to me now as much as it did when I was a kid. It's a lean, mean, tight slasher film. It comes in like credits roll at an hour and a half. You know, it's not long, and I really appreciate that. And it leans into the camp of these characters that they kind of fell into as their franchises went along, while kind of keeping that same violent edge that they had to horror that they started out as. Because Nightmare on Elm Street 1 is very different from 4 in terms of how Freddy acts. He's much more campy and stuff.
No.
And same thing with Jason. Again, not spoiling anything for you, but as the series goes on, those movies become much more campy. Especially in was it Jason Lives, the sixth one, which is like I think probably my favorite in the franchise. I really like it. Is this going to win an Oscar for screenwriting? Hell no, hell no. But I think this movie it more than delivers on its title, and personally for me it ranks highly amongst both franchises. I probably would have, again, Jason Lives, which is the one where I think he gets brought back to life. I believe that's Jason Lives, probably as my favorite Jason movie. And then for my favorite Freddy movie, it's the first one, or Dream Warriors, which is the third one, which I really, really like a lot. But this would be probably my or my third favorite Jason movie, and it would probably be like my third or second favorite Freddy movie. Like I really, really enjoy this movie on a whole. I can't disagree with you in the fact that it is it's the screenplay and script. It's not great at all. These characters are so forgettable. They're so like cookie cutter. But I kind of like that you don't have that attachment because again, it allows for you to kind of disassociate from the violence you see. If you knew these characters and you knew them on a
Mhm.
personal level, it would feel much like darker.
Yeah, sure. Another thing, one of the first things I said to Jess after the movie was, I can see a world that exists that 12, 13-year-old me sees this movie for the first time and is like, that was sick. Like I could see that happening. It didn't happen because I never saw it until I was in my 30s, so that I completely, if I could wrap around I mean, I can see the time capsule in terms of filmmaking and the era it captures, but if I could add in the nostalgic factor or something that takes me back to a time, when I was a teenager or preteen or something, I think that would add a lot of value to me. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and I have none of that value, so it didn't. But I can certainly understand that. Because I
Yeah.
used to, I mean, there were so many nights where you'd have like, you'd invite a girl over, you and your buddy would be like, we're gonna get to go sit in the playroom at Walker's house and have the two girls over. We're gonna rent a horror movie. Let's rent this one where Fear.com or some kind of other stupid movie that like at the time was like, this is great.
Fear.com, that's a pull.
Yeah, that's the one I think of. There's a couple of them. It'd be fun. It'd be a funny list to go through, but this one just never made that list. So and I don't know if this would have been the right movie for that scenario either. But it didn't cross my radar at the time. It wasn't at the top of my list, and so I don't have that luxury. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're in the majority. Most people don't like that or don't like this movie critically. Like the Rotten Tomato score right now, we'll go ahead and get into that. It's 41%, with the consensus being fans of the two horror franchises will enjoy the showdown, but everyone else, it's the same old slice and dice. And I can't disagree with that. That is true. You take
Mhm.
someone into the deep end that's not necessarily interested in this franchise, they're not going to like this movie. They'll probably laugh at it. But people who grew up, you know, enjoying these franchises and enjoying these horror icons, it, I think it lives up to a versus battle, you know, completely. And I've read some of the original ideas. This is the best one in terms of it being so less convoluted. It's just short, to the point. It could have been way worse. And I'm not saying that to like dissuade people from it or say, oh, it could have been worse, so that's why it's enjoyable. No, like I legitimately enjoy this movie, but I understand why people don't like it. It's fair.
Yeah, I'll say so. A couple questions. Number first, a statement. I agree. I think the overall concept of the movie, if you're a fan of the franchise, if you're a fan of the genre, and you can suspend disbelief and buy in, and you're into that, and you can really appreciate and respect. If the stars align for you in these movies, I think the on paper the concept of how they were gonna make this movie work in terms of like how are we gonna get them to face off, pretty good. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
Like what they're I mean, part of it's a little. I don't know the lore very much, which is kind of tough for me. So I do have a couple questions. Can you give me just kind of a brief education on Jason? I like what's his deal? Is he just a killer? Is
So
he like good?
I,
I know Freddy.
I
Freddy.
want,
Freddy. The opener really helped with me with Freddy because like it seems like he was a
yeah,
kidnapper, child murderer. The parents caught on to it. They killed him. They burned him up, and that created this like demon like character that could haunt you in your dreams, and he can kill you while you're
like,
in your dreams, which makes for a very
yeah.
creative concept of terror. Jason, I can't. I just didn't get the same. It didn't do Jason as much justice as it did Freddy, in my opinion, with the openers.
So Jason is it's very cut and dry. It's very simple. He drowned in a lake when he was a kid because the horny teenagers were too busy having sex, and so
I guess they touch on that
again,
later.
trying to skate around spoilers. he comes back because I know that. How interested are you in watching the Friday the 13th movies?
Spoilers are not going to bother me if that's made the conversation
Okay, he's not the
easier.
killer in the first movie. It's the mom. The mom takes it out on these kids.
Oh, that's pretty good. Okay.
Yeah, and he comes back in the second one, or really at the end of the first one. Little Jason pops up from the lake, pulls the girl into the lake, and then in the second one, he's the killer, and he doesn't even don the hockey mask until the third movies. It's very cut and dry. You can't kill him. It's hard to stop him. He's just this relentless force that hates horny teenagers.
So he doesn't even wear the mask until the third movie.
Yeah,
Really? And that's such an iconic. Wow,
right.
I
It's
had no
it's
idea
such an
that.
iconic look, but he does not don the mask until the third movie,
Do you like the first one?
which is like the first movie's really good. Like it's again dated, campy, but it's legitimately kind of creepy. The mom, especially, is really creepy.
Hmm.
But the franchise is more hit and miss as a whole than Freddy's. Like the Freddy's first, second, third movies are really good, and then it kind of slowly goes down until you get New Nightmare when Wes Craven comes back, and it's this really cool meta movie that's kind of a precursor to Scream.
Hmm.
Um, I really really enjoy that one. Uh,
So is he?
but
He's dead. He's a zombie. I know he's a zombie in this, or not a zombie. Well,
pretty
I mean, he's
pretty
resurrected in this movie,
pretty
but is that what
much,
he is pretty much through the whole thing?
yeah. He's just
And you
a
you
killing
think he's the
machine.
killer in the first one, and there's a twist that it's the mom?
It's a twist. You don't know who the killer is until it's revealed that it is the mom.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seems like the mom is very influential over him. From like it looks like Freddy in person,
Yes.
like embodied the mom to convince Jason to go on this tear.
Yeah.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
I
And
got that. That was
that's kind
helpful.
of a brief synopsis of the character.
That does sound good. I mean, the first movie sounds good.
First movie is the Kevin Bacon's in it. He has a very memorable death.
Really. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll check them out. I'll
Um,
watch them. I'll let you know what I
yeah,
think.
they're fun movies. What would you give this on your Rotten Tomato scale? I'm curious. I want to know where you're at. Is it like that Blue Beetle where you're at 40%, but you're at almost at 39? Where are you sitting at with this?
Well, I'm not at 40. Um,
Oh, so
fan I
lower.
ended up on. Yeah, I mean, the number I ended up on last night was 27 out of 100.
Holy shit.
I
That's so
uh Now I
low.
gotta remind you, I don't have much lore to work on, and I don't have much nostalgia to work on, and I don't have much. I'm not a fan of the genre, so it like doesn't tickle any of my fancies. Like it doesn't work for me much at all. So I typically can appreciate. I mean, if it's done, in my opinion, at a level. Like I said, I mean, like Scream. I don't like horror movies. I love Scream. I think Scream is an awesome
Yeah.
movie. And
Yeah.
but it just does this. It does it in this way that I consider very smart, and even the over the top stuff is done in this. I mean, obviously, Scream's super meta, but just anything that works that way, I can get behind, and it sounds like I could get behind the original movies on in these two franchises, but the looking at it from a critical perspective, I mean, I don't like the screenplay. I don't like the script. The performances, with the exception of a couple, not I do
Yeah.
not like, and I really didn't like the direction either. I didn't think like it was shot in a way, coming off like watching. We talked about Evil Dead earlier in this year, and what Sam Raimi's able to do with a
Well,
camera to create. I know that's an unfair comparison,
yeah.
but it
Sam
it just
Sam Raimi is what he's able to do with a camera is not many people cannot operate a camera the way that man does.
sure. I just it just I don't really mean to compare their work. I mean to kind of compare it in the terms of like opposite ends of the spectrum kind of thing. Like what Sam Raimi
Mhm.
was so good at. I don't know. It just didn't create. And it's also such a weird movie because it's like, is it a horror movie? I mean, there's a couple jump scares that I jumped at, but like, there was never a
Is
moment
it?
that I was scared. It was more
No,
of like an action, like, yeah.
it's a it's in the horror slasher genre. I would say it's more of a genre film, but it's got that comedy element to it, that and that camp element to it, that both of the franchises kind of evolved to be, because these characters became so larger than life that eventually audiences stopped being scared of them and started rooting for them,
Mhm.
because the the scripts were quick. They were churning out these movies. Like Friday the 13th, by the time you got to 1993, had 9 movies. And then they did the
No,
10th one, Jason X, in 2002, which is awful. Besides the really cool one really, really cool death. But then Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one was in 1984. And by the time you were to, like, was it 1994, you had 7 movies.
is it noted anywhere what Martin Scorsese's opinion is of these franchises?
Oh,
Specifically, Jason 9.
I would love to see. I would love to see them. If you really want to have a good time, look up Siskel and Ebert's thoughts on these movies. they're
Okay.
they're really entertaining. Look, for me personally, I would critically, like, it is hard to give this movie like a complete pass. It's like you said, the characters are. I don't remember their names. The only reason I remember their names is because I take notes while watching it. But to me, as a horror fan that loves these characters, this is like a 75% for me. 75, 78, probably 78, because it delivers on what it's supposed to be, Freddy versus Jason, and it's not some convoluted mess. It is very simple. They explain it in the first like 3 minutes, and then you're to it.
Yeah.
And then you have these faceless, nameless characters that you don't give a shit about driving the movie, because you got to have some people for Freddy and Jason to slice and dice, and it
Yeah.
works on that simplistic level. And that's why I would probably lean toward that 78%. Like, again, this is like really ranked really highly for me in both franchises. I really enjoy it. Um, but
I think that's fair.
again,
I mean, I've got. Oh, sorry. Good.
no, you're fine. Go ahead.
I think that's fair. I mean, I think there's a lot of movies out there, and I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. I'm having trouble with it, but that are just made for me. You know what I mean? They're just the movie I like, and
Hmm.
they take me back to a time. They work with a franchise that hits me close to whatever it might be, and my rating of it may be higher than it would be from a completely non-biased critical perspective. You know what I mean? And then there's stuff like this where it's not really. I have the opposite effect where I'm obviously lower than the average score
Yeah.
because it doesn't hit any of the beats for me that hit like an emotional or sentimental or anything like that. Anything that like just gets me my juices flowing. I don't have that at all. So I like this type of movie can easily be skewed one way or the other and probably fall somewhere in the middle from an unbiased critical perspective.
Yeah. And I get it. I get it. You're gonna get no arguments from me. But let's move into some fun facts here. Uh, this is the final film in which Robert Englund played Freddy Krueger, and going to that final shot of the movie, the wink. It's I can't imagine going out on a better note for such a horror icon. He's great in this movie. This is like the best version that I think we could get of Freddy Krueger. Like, he
So would you
is
is he more
menacing,
subdued in the
terrifying.
original?
He's more subdued in the first one, more horrific in the second one. But then once you get to the third one, his personality starts to come out a little bit more. Like his
Hmm.
personality has always been there, but it comes out more in the third one, especially the fourth one, and that's when it kind of takes the turn to the camp.
So would you say his portrayal in this movie was pretty on par and true to the character?
Oh yeah, for sure,
Okay.
absolutely, absolutely. The thing is, Robert England is never bad in any of the movies. He's always the best part of all the movies.
Hmm.
Always.
Yeah, I was. You said one other person has played Freddy throughout the franchise. Is that?
Jackie Earl Haley played him in 2010 when they remade the movie,
Oh,
and he
oh.
was
So
really
got it.
he was really good, but the movie itself was just a slog.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely charismatic through a lot of it. I mean, Robert England's good in it. I appreciate that he was the OG guy and he stuck around and owned the role for so long. I guess the character in general, like towards the end, I like the third act kind of fell up. I have positive things to say about the movie. I really do. So it's not going to be just me bashing it the whole time. But it's specifically the second act. I liked, or at least gave me like hope to like.
Hmm.
I didn't love the first act. I didn't love the third act. And but Freddy, I liked through most of the movie. The third act, he just got so over the top for me. So I don't know, when he's just so campy at the end. You know what I mean? And like when like he just being like he just kept saying bitch every
That's his
time. It's
thing.
like
That's his thing. Welcome to my world, bitch. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
it's
his
just
thing. That's
such
his calling card, man.
yeah.
But I get it. If you do not like grow up with these movies, or you don't have like an affinity for these movies, I could see where you're like, what the is this? Like, I get it. According to Robert England, his Freddy makeup was so thick that he couldn't tell how hot it was when the fires were starting during the filming. And when he got to have his makeup removed, it had bonded itself to his face.
Wow.
That is
Yeah.
claustrophobic.
Yeah. Anytime I hear makeup stories
Ugh.
like that, it's like God, that's such a pay them what they deserve. I mean, like Jim Carrey, I was
Yeah.
listening to him in the talk about the Grinch recently
Oh,
on Instagram.
yeah.
Yeah, I imagine that's and you could tell.
How
I mean, it's on
irritated
there.
his eyes got.
Yeah. I mean, it
Yeah.
was thick on there, and you got a couple like I mean, a lot of the shots are in the shadows, but some of them are clear as day, and he looked gross.
Yeah. Um, I think I still have my Freddy Krueger mask downstairs. I should have. This was a perfect opportunity to put it on, and I completely missed that opportunity. I'm pretty sure I still have it somewhere. I'll have to find it. Um,
That's
it's
funny.
not
Yeah,
movie quality, but you know
that was my
it is.
when I saw Step Brothers in theaters. That was my favorite joke of the movie. I love that joke.
Same.
No one else thought it was as funny as I did, but
I'm
I loved
I'm
it.
so
It's
happy you
okay,
got
bro.
that reference.
Yeah.
James Wan was originally going to direct this film. Now, I don't know how true that is. This is the only place I've seen it. Again, like I always stress with fun facts, all these fun facts I get off of IMDb. They're fun to discuss. I don't know how true they are. I do little to no research on them. But when I was looking at the a lot of the behind the scenes material and like the lead up to it, I don't recall hearing James Wan's name. Apparently, he was already committed to directing Saw. I mean, it's James Wan. He probably would have freaking killed this movie.
Right.
I'm 100% sure he would have. Peter Jackson, Rob Zombie, Louis Abernathy, Rob Botton, Mark Az Debe. I think that's Debe. I think that's how you would say it. I don't know. Guillermo del Toro were also considered to direct during the 90s. Guillermo del Toro would have done a really good job. Same with Peter Jackson. The rest, not so much, I don't think.
Peter Jackson. I mean, what's I know Lord of the Rings, but what is he? Has he
He was
done horror?
primarily, yeah, he was primarily a horror director before, a low budget horror director before he did Lord of the Rings.
No, really. I'm not as
Mhm.
familiar with this. But Guillermo del Toro, I know he thrives with monsters and stuff, so I think that would be great. Rob Zombie, I want AMC's putting all the Halloweens out every day right now, and
Yeah.
Jess, my wife is a big time fan of all the Halloweens. I mean, she can just watch them all month long, just on marathon, especially if it's in the background while we're cleaning or something. So I've kind of gotten reintroduced. Maybe I don't know if I've seen them or seen them both or all of them, but the Rob Zombie Halloweens.
Yeah.
I think. What are your thoughts on the Rob Zombie Halloweens?
It's been so long since I've seen them. I hated the second one. I know that one. But I remember when I saw the first one, like the 2007 one, I liked it. But again, I was 13 years old when that came out. And I haven't seen it since.
The
So
conversations in our house are always like I'm asking her like is her favorite one the original? She's like, no, it's like you like the remake. She's like, well, and then she just gets into like she's like, not that remake, the other remake, and it's like, okay, well, I don't know. It's getting confusing. Yeah, some of these
yeah,
people would have been
the
Peter Jackson, I guess, or Guillermo del Toro is the one that sticks out to me the most. Is like that would have been a fun ride with him.
Guillermo del Toro sticks out to me. James Wan sticks out to me,
Yeah,
especially after watching
obviously,
*Malignant*.
yeah. Sorry.
Um, He would have he would have crushed it. But speaking of not crushing it, that's the director here, Ronnie Yu. The biggest problem that occurred on set was a fight between the director Ronnie Yu and Catherine Isabel, who had signed onto the film on the promise that she would not have to do nude scenes, as she has a no strict or as a strict no nudity clause in her contract. During the shoot, however, Yu went back on the promise and repeatedly tried to pressure her to get naked. They eventually settled on using a body double. And look, I don't love getting into behind the scenes drama like this, especially and stuff like this on set. But I think it's important to call out when people are assholes, and that's an asshole thing to do. It's wrong and gross,
Yeah,
especially like if someone has a no nudity clause in their contract. That's that's done. There knows that's it and that's all. There needs to be no other conversations had. And to pressure somebody to do something because you think you got them because they're casting the role,
yeah, that's
that's
slimy. I
gross.
mean, it's shit. I agree completely. There's plenty of nudity in this movie too to satisfy Ronnie
Yeah,
Hughes.
yeah. Some of it's not necessarily necessary either. It's just there
Yeah,
because it's there.
because it's fucking 2003. Let's rock.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely. Yeah, it sucks, and that's not necessarily a fun fact. But like I said, I always think it's important to call out assholes when they're assholes.
Agreed.
17 scripts were submitted, which eventually turned into one script. The producers decided for some time to go ahead with this script, but changed their minds as they could not agree with the ideas proposed. Eventually, in 2001, Damian Shannon and Mark Swift came in and created their own script, which the producers felt was much closer to the Freddy and Jason backstories. Most of the earlier scripts dealt with cults that were attempting to resurrect Freddy and Jason to come back to fight, and that's true. They dealt with a lot of lore, a lot of the sequels, and they bring all of it together for this, but it's not nearly as convoluted as those initial scripts were. And in fact, David Goyer did like an uncredited rewrite on this movie to really even condense that down. I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure. I think I read and heard while I was watching the behind the scenes stuff. David Goyer was pretty famous for doing that back in the day. And yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
again, is this script great? No, I don't think it is, especially to get to the dialogue and everything like that, and to these characters are so stereotypical. But I think it works in the sense that we don't really want these characters, at least I don't go into these movies in particular wanting to see these characters fleshed out that much. I just want to see Freddy and Jason fight, and it's Freddy versus Jason, and then the primary driving force. The people in this movie are just kind of driving the plot forward because you got to have some people for Freddy and Jason to cut up. So I think it works on that level. But is it a great script? We've been over it before. It's
Yeah,
crazy. There's
and the
17 drafts though. That's insane.
yeah, the I mean, the idea in general. I mean, is in terms of the way the ideas they had beforehand and what they settled on in terms of bringing it all together. I don't have any issues with it. My biggest concern with like just the concept in general of the how they're gonna just how they're gonna frame this movie of making it work, getting them together was it was just lack of knowledge. Like I just didn't understand. I don't know enough about Jason's power or Freddy's power. I didn't even realize Jason was like they were like, yeah. So I found Jason in hell and sent him back. It's like, okay, so you just can do that, I guess. I didn't know, like I don't know what Freddy can do. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, so you found Jason in hell under some overpass and just decided to shoot him. I mean, you got the power to do that. And I mean, you start to learn it as you go because he's like, not enough power yet. So,
Yeah,
and
I'm not
so
strong
you start
enough
to
yet.
like figure out, yeah, kind of what he means. But that was my only issue with it, really, as a whole, was just not knowing, just having to like as it goes by into each power along the way without it being like overly explained, which is fine. I mean,
Yeah.
the opener was helpful, but having not seen or remembering anything from the franchises, there was a couple like holes that I had to just kind of, believe it or not, I had to buy into a few things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Kane Hodder, who betrayed Jason in the previous four films featuring the character, was keen on reprising the role and had even been given a copy of the final script. However, Jason was subsequently recast, with Hodder claiming he had been kept out of the loop as to why. This decision caused backlash from some Friday the 13th Jason fans. Ronnie Yu explained that while Hodder was fantastic in the role, he chose Ken Kissinger for the part, as Kazinger was slightly taller and broader than Hodder, thus giving more contrast to with the much shorter Robert Englund as Freddy. And because he wanted a slightly different take on the character, he felt Hodder was somewhat too aggressive, where he wanted Jason to be slower, smoother, more deliberate in how he is betrayed. Yude would later claim that it was a studio decision that he would have cast Hodder if New Line had wanted Hodder. Though Hodder was disappointed and angry with the decision, he holds no grudge with Kassinger, who had worked with him on the eighth film as a stunt double. Um, I mean, I'm a fan of the franchises. You can tell because Hodder is slightly less taller. I think he's like 6'2". Kazinger is like 6'5", I think. Um, and Kazinger is broader, and I think that visual does work better.
Yeah, sure.
And it,
Yeah, he's
it kind
definitely a
of has
unit. I
like,
mean, he's a big man.
yeah,
Um,
it's, to me, I think that contrast works better. It sucks that he was done the way he was done, but still
yeah, I
works.
mean, you got Vader. It's kind of like Darth Vader. Being
Yeah.
cast in like not, I forgot his name. Unfortunately, that's the issue. I don't even remember his name.
David Prowse was cast as
Okay.
Darth Vader, and you can look up the actual, like, him reading the lines and thinking he was going to be Darth Vader, and then James Earl Jones did the voice. And
Yeah.
I gotta,
So I
yeah.
guess same question I had with Freddy. Like it sounds like he was more methodical and slow and deliberate. It says in this version of Jason. Does this portrayal stay true to the character, or was this a little different? Like,
So they make a, and we'll get into it a little bit in the does this make sense category, but and I don't
mhm.
want to step on that, or does this make sense award rather.
Okay.
But
Gotcha.
I don't think that they make a change, in something with the character that I think a lot of
Okay.
fans had questions about, and me myself
We can get
included.
into
But
it.
yeah, we'll get into it a little later. Chronologically, the film is set after the events of Freddy's Dead, The Final Nightmare, and Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday. Um, Final Nightmare came out in 91. Jason Goes to Hell came out in 93. But before Jason X, which came out in 2001, I think Jason X came out in 2002, actually, uh, which was released beforehand as this movie spent so long in development hell. And that's true. Like this at the end of Jason Goes to Hell, you see the mask kind of with sand going over it and dirt, and then all of a sudden you see a glove pop up and it comes over the face, and you hear Freddy's laugh, and it pulls it
Mhm.
to hell. And yeah, this movie was stuck in development hell for a long time. So much so that they once again they went forward with another Jason movie like a year prior to when this came out.
It's interesting.
Yeah. And this is the last fun fact we'll get to before we get to our awards. The highly coveted, highly beloved awards category. At one point in
Prestigious.
time, very prestigious, exactly. That's the word. That's another word I was looking for. At one point in time, a sequel titled Freddy versus Jason versus Ash was considered, which would have included Bruce Campbell's iconic cult character Ash from the Evil Dead trilogy. This was partially inspired by several props in Evil Dead 2, Necrocomic-Con, including Necrocomic-Con and Death Dagger being used in Jason Goes to Hell as an Easter egg. For several reasons, including legality issues over New Line Cinema not owning Evil Dead or the rights to the character Ash, and the decision to remake both Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street, the film never came to be, although it was eventually turned into a popular comic book. I would have loved to have
Yeah,
seen
I know
this.
I would have. I think I would have preferred it. I mean, I've seen all the Evil Dead movies. I've not seen the TV show or anything, but and I had a different sentiment after that. Similar, like I mean, I'm not a horror guy, but I had more respect for those movies. Just Sam Raimi in particular, and I like Bruce Campbell's portrayal, and I think it would have been fun to add him into the mix, add a layer of like
Yeah.
comedy to it almost that could kind of capture more of the camping. I don't know. I think it'd be fun.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen Bruce Campbell and Robert England just going back and forth.
Yeah, take his
That would have
boomstick.
been, yeah. Here's my boomstick. I'd like to
That's
introduce you to my boomstick.
funny.
And then see like that image of Freddy's claw like kind of coming and attacking the chainsaw would have been
Oh yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
cool. That would have been really cool. And I think Ash falling asleep and him getting into his mind and how the way that Ash's mind works, I think it lends to some incredible creativity. It's unfortunate that this never happened, and we will never. I don't think we'll ever get this. But man, I would have loved it. I
Yeah.
absolutely
Mhm.
would have been freaking in love with that idea. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our award section. Start off with favorite scenes and moments. Freddy catches us up to speed. You've kind of talked about this a little bit, but I just really love this setup because if you haven't seen, and maybe I'm a little wrong, but this was my thought process of it. I might be a little wrong given your take. I thought that if you haven't seen like a Jason movie or a Freddy movie, this is the perfect like way to catch you up to speed.
I agree. No, I agree. I'm so out of it that I don't like. I've let's for all intents and purposes, I haven't seen any of them. I know I've seen Nightmare on Elm Street, once upon a time, but
Yeah.
it's been a long time. I mean, just for the sake of this conversation, I haven't seen any of them, and there was very little that I needed like help on doing it. I mean, and I doubt. I mean, they need to do that. I agree completely. It was a great idea. They can't expect you everybody in a horror theater, in a horror in the theater of a horror movie they can't expect you to have seen all 95 films in these franchises so far. You've got to like give us a
No.
catch up and let us understand what's happening. And for the few people, because I imagine most people at least had seen Friday the 13th or Nightmare, at least had seen something from one or both of the genres. And I'm just probably the odd man out. So I agree with you. I think you are right. I think it was very well done. I think it was necessary, and I appreciated it.
Well, even as a kid, like I've never seen any of the Nightmare movies, but seeing clips from them, I was like, "Oh my god, I gotta see these movies! They look freaking gnarly!"
Yeah.
And yeah, ended up watching all of them and owning all of them. Still don't own all the Friday the 13th movies, but that's
It's
on the
coming.
list. Douchebag boyfriend Trey gets stabbed to death and then gets the bed folded on him. Like, first off, the character of Trey is like the stereotypical douchebag. Like, after he's done having sex with his girlfriend, oh, don't touch me afterward. I don't like being touched. Oh, your hair smells like menthol. You
Yeah,
should
he's
go
a
take a
dick.
shower.
The whole, I
Just the
mean, he's so over the
worst.
top.
It is the worst.
As
And then
soon
he
as
just gets
Yeah, as soon as he was like, "Don't
railed.
make me ask you twice," I was like, "He's got it figured out. He gets it." It's like just like yeah, he's gross to watch.
he,
Yeah, I mean, it was a good one to kill. Yeah, you wanted him to die painfully, and it looked pretty painful.
yeah, just the shot of the bed folding in
His
is
feet
like,
behind his head.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's disgusting. Yeah, it works so well, and they set up perfectly that you're looking forward to this douche getting knocked off.
yeah, yeah,
Kia gets her nose ripped off in the dream, so this
yeah,
always got me. The got your nose, and then flings it,
yeah. I have it.
which
I
is
have it under my notes of the funniest parts of the movie. I liked it. I thought it was funny.
well, yeah, but it's also like it was done practically, apparently. And I will say I have an issue. Although it doesn't fit the whole if it happens in the dream, it happens for real logic because
Right.
her nose got in the dream, and then she wakes up and it's like her nose is
Yeah,
still there. So
they
it
were willing to
doesn't.
sacrifice it for the joke or for the bit.
Yeah,
I mean, it was fun. I enjoyed that part. That was a part that I got a positive reaction out of me.
yeah. Gibbs Freddy dream, which is very reminiscent of the boiler room from the first movie, Freddy's first victim in the first movie.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I thought it was very well done. It was creepy. The claws on the pipe going down and making the noise and everything. I really like that. And then how it starts to set up the rivalry between Jason and Freddy, because Jason ends up killing the rave sexual assaultist who's
Yeah,
about to like
yeah. I agree. This was. I mentioned I didn't love the first act of the movie. The first act of the movie, I was just getting into, it, and it was so other than Robert Englund, the Jason Ritter and the guy who plays Mark, his buddy from the institution, they get
yeah
out when they get introduced. Before that point, I was like, dude, is there not an actor in this movie? Has anybody in this movie ever acted before the life? And then they get introduced, like, okay, their performances were fine to me. I mean, I'm not talking about Robert Englund, but you know what I mean. Like before that, it was just
yeah.
these like Trey, the douchey boyfriend, and it was like, what's happening? And so like that's why I didn't really like the first act. And then the third act, we can get into another. And I mentioned a little bit of it earlier, but the second act, when Gibbs in her dream and Jason gets her before Freddy could. I liked that a lot. And I liked at that point I had like
Well, it's also
forgotten.
like you're pulling for this guy who's like sexually assaulting Gib while she's passed out, to get got, and he does, but it also ends up killing her
Yeah.
because he just stabs right through him.
She so I but at that point I forgot in the movie that it was a Freddy versus Jason movie. I thought I was just watching like a slasher movie, and then it was like, oh, okay. And when I saw it, I was like, I could so that's why like because they were working together, and you just I just forgot that the title was Freddy versus Jason, and it's like, okay, so that's going to start to piss him off, and that was the moment of hope for me that I was expecting. I kind of start out. I find a score once I find the vibe of the movie, and then I ride it up and write it down on good and bad, and almost as like a counter. Like, how much good can you give me? I'm going to keep going up as long as I'm enjoying myself, or I'm going to keep going down as long as I'm
Mhm.
not enjoying myself. I was hopeful at that point that this movie was going to turn into kind of a look. I mean, it's not a good movie. I mean, it's around like a 50, but I had a blast with it. It was a lot of fun. Like, I
Yeah.
thought I was going to end up in that world because of this scene, because it was like, oh, okay, that's pretty creative. I like how they did that, and like now they're fighting over who gets the victims. That's like a perfect like rivalry there. I really did like that scene.
He stabs him, and Jason flings him like 20
Yeah.
feet. I was like, okay, that's awesome. Jason crashes the rave while on fire. So this is sick. He takes the guy's head first off, breaks his neck, and it goes
Okay.
completely like pulls a complete exorcist and goes completely the opposite direction. And the guy just like has time to like throw like I guess it was what it was liquor, whatever he's drinking, vodka on him, and
Everclear.
then sets it on fire. Everclear. He's like, this Everclear is really getting to me, man.
Yeah.
And then
Foreshadowing.
douses him with the tiki torch, and
Hmm.
he's like running away from him. Gets the like hatchet thrown at him. While again practical, this guy is on fire while
Yeah,
doing
that
all
did
this
look
stuff.
good. That looked good. The practical
Sick
effects of
is
that. Yeah.
sick.
And that's right
Lots
up
of
the alley of this 13-year-old me wishing I saw this movie then, like being like, oh, sick. It was still cool. I mean, it's still cool. It was a
yeah,
good scene.
lots of really cool kills in this. Mark's death. So this is Jason Ritter's friend Mark. This is really Freddy's only kill in the movie. He doesn't kill anyone else. This is his only kill.
That's right. Yeah, okay.
And it's pretty creative. The it's twisted. The brother from which is the bully from A Christmas Story being in the bathtub and having the slit wrists. It's pretty messed up. But then the thing that gets me is the like spikes coming in from the blood and
Yeah.
sinking into his feet.
Oh
God, it
yeah, I
gets me.
hate that. The
Yeah,
all of those scenes with the that was gross. Yeah, this was a good scene too. This was right in my wheelhouse when I was excited. This was when
yeah.
the Gibbs death with finding out their rivalry to just an over the top campy, but you can kind of smirk at it, man on fire, twisting a guy's neck, killing a stoner type vibe to to this scene, which was intense and kind of and scary, and then like it was creepy how they sent the message with the burns on him, and then those spikes were gross. There was another scene where like I don't, it might have been during the opener where like people's feet were like chunked out, and like I mean it might have been
Yeah, that's
like a
it's
flashback
a
or something.
flashback to one of the movies, one of
That was
the
gross.
previous
Whatever
movies
that little
where
scene
he's
was
being
gross.
pulled like this,
Yeah,
like a
disgusting.
puppet. Yeah,
Yeah. So that was gross too, but like this was starting to get into. This was the part of the movie I enjoyed the most. These couple scenes in a row here. Mark's death was intense though.
yeah, very much so. Freddy versus Jason round one. So
Remind
this
me
is
of
really
which one
cool.
round was. I know round two. I'm trying to bring round one back into my
Round
mind.
round one is the dream fight where you're fighting on Freddy's home turf,
Okay. Okay.
and they're going back and forth. Freddy's got the upper hand most of the fight. Like he does the whole pinball thing, which I know a lot
Yeah.
of people don't like, but you hit the pinball effects. But like, I kind of dig it.
Yeah.
It fits Freddy's aesthetic. But like, he's trying to find something that he's afraid of, which again we'll get into later. And he finally finds the thing that he's afraid of, which is water, and that's kind of his weakness because he's like, "Oh, why won't you just die?" Because he can't kill
Yeah. Yeah. So I yeah, this was better. I did not like the pinball scene. I thought that got too silly for me. But
him.
but the
Wacky.
before that, the fight, I think again when we're starting to like establish this rivalry, and it's like, oh, that's an interesting concept, like home field advantage. We're doing this fight in the dream and this fight on land, and then we've got the fire in the water situation and stuff. But that was still in the making of like I'm excited about it. You know what I mean? Like that was a cool concept, and that was a good way I think to have them face off and have two different like when they're in the dream, Freddy has the upper hand. When they're in real life, Jason has the upper. I think that's cool.
Yeah. Uh, this isn't really like a scene, but again, it's scenes and moments. I love the moment of the light turning to red and him pointing up at Lori and going, "You," and then the light turns red. He points up, or he jumps up from the lake, and he hits that pose. And the lights are like the shot is all red with the lake in the background and everything, and his face reverts back to what it was in New Nightmare. I really like that a lot. I really like that quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah, that was yeah, it was an interesting scene. I'm trying to remember. There was another scene where I'm trying to remember what happened. The color changed again. Did the color change to like green at some point? Like the lighting?
Yeah, it goes from like that red to green,
Okay.
and round one is what I call it. Round one, Freddy versus
Okay.
Jason. Freddy versus Jason round two. So this is really, to me, like, spoiler alert, this is my favorite scene in the entire movie. Like, this is where you get Freddy gets pulled back into the real world, and his reaction when he realizes he's in the real world, and he like recoils and he has like the claw by his face. He's like, "Oh shit!" Like, he has that shit look on his that oh shit look on his face.
Mm-hmm.
Like, love that, and it's
Yeah.
so brutal. Takes him, kicks him in the crotch, and it hurts his foot. It's ridiculous. And like, Jason takes him, throws him through like all those the side of the house and the windows. It's so over the top, ridiculous. You get the part where like they end up on the what is it? Because he's shooting the CO2 cans at him
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The
or
torpedo.
whatever. Torpedoes, man, the torpedoes.
Yeah.
So ridiculous. And it's so like gross when the spikes fall. He calls it, "Hey, asshole!" He like throws the spikes down on him, and he lets that thing go down. It's knocking them all around. When Freddy gets caught up in that thing, I that's hilarious. He's like banging around. It's so
Yeah.
clumsy and ridiculous. But by the time you get to the end of this fight, it's so gross and brutal. They are like hacking each other to bits, and you don't really know who's going to win.
Right.
They go back and forth. You know, Jason gets his eyes got gouged out at one point. Freddy gets his arm cut off. Jason gets his fingers cut off. There's that explosion. Freddy appears from the water. You think it's Jason. He has the hatchet. And then Freddy or Jason uses the arm to go through his chest. And then, of course, the "welcome to my nightmare, bitch." And then Lori cuts off his head. I'm kind of just retelling the entire scene, but it's just all these like great moments, I think, from this scene. Albeit there's some dated language that is used from Kelly Rowland in this sequence that
Sure.
certainly wouldn't be used today. And there's a
That whole
great,
scene was a little day, like the whole
yeah, there
from
is a
Freddy too.
Freddy's line, yeah, which there is a hilarious Camille Maggiani stand up bit about that scene. That
Oh,
is, and
really?
I don't want to say what it
Look it up.
is, but you'll have to look it up because I would not do the joke justice. Camille Nagiani is a hilarious
Yeah,
comedian. I don't
I'll
want to
check
step
that
on
out.
his toes. Also, really good screenwriter for The Big Sick, which is a really really good movie.
Oh, yeah,
But
very talented.
really, this entire sequence is just the cake. It is why you go see the movie. There's a definitive winner. It's Jason until, of course, you get the wink at the end, which is the last scene we have in favorite scenes and moments. Um,
Yeah, the wink. I
I
mean,
love it.
that's just, it is what it is. I mean, it's gonna it's homage to the genre. I mean, the genre is all about like just you can't put them down, and they're coming back, and they every movie ends that way, and that's I wouldn't have it any other way. Even though I'm gonna roll my eyes at it every time.
Yeah. I've spoke a lot at length on Freddy versus Jason round two. Do you have any thoughts on it? Like I know that's where you said the movie kind of tapered off for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a lot. It's just silly. I mean, the end, Freddy's character, and I don't know Freddy's character that much, so like it was hard again. And it was 20 years ago. He just started getting kind of like less entertaining to me at that point. I mean, he just started getting so like mean. I mean, I know he's a monster, you know what I mean? But he was just like they just made him like his I don't know. There's like charm in his character for a lot of the movie. You know what I mean? Because he's got this
Yeah.
like doo wop type, like lean up on a street corner, flipping a coin, type of vibe to him
Yeah.
with his hat and everything. But at this point, he just became like, to me, he just became non-charismatic. He just became a monster to me. Like he was like, it just had like vibes of, and I don't want to get like over the top. It's Freddy versus Jason. I don't mean to like get like too sensitive about stuff or anything like that, but I mean it was just like the first time gets a little messy, and then like the Kelly Rowland conversation, it just got like a little like Jesus Christ, like it was just too much in like a small period of time. I was like, this is like, am I like offended by it? I don't know. It's just like a lot, and then the fight was it was what it is. I mean, it was wildly over the top, which isn't my style, but I understand fits well within the frames of the movie. But I
Listen
preferred the round one because
for the
my favorite
character,
parts of this movie were the dream aspects
the
of it. For
dream
a lot of it,
sequence.
the dreams, they did a great job. I mean, they didn't do a perfect job in my opinion, but they did a good job of making the dream aspect feel weird and manipulated. And I liked the running boards of the floorboards kind of doing the wave when
Mhm.
she's running from it. That was cool. And again, I'm pretty somewhat familiar with the concept of Freddy Krueger, but I'm not overly familiar. So like the concept of it happening in real life is still interesting to me, and it's still like that's a cool way to do it. And if you can like buy into it, that's a cool, I almost said superhero, but a cool like terrorizing character trait or premise. So I
Yeah.
really like the dream aspects of it. Now I got a little silly with the pinball machine and stuff like, or but I just like that those parts were my favorite parts with the and it just the what I was saying earlier about the premise of Freddy versus Jason being like home field advantage and stuff like that. That was always kind of cool to me. But the fight, you know,
It is what it is for you. I will
yeah,
say this, like going back to like the language Freddy is using and stuff like that. I can forgive him because he, as a character, is a despicable person.
sure.
Like,
He's also a
he's a
child
child.
kidnapper, murderer. Yeah, I mean, it's not.
Yeah, he's a child murderer. So
I
it's like
mean,
okay, like whatever. But like the Kelly Rowland line is like okay,
the beginning,
it's
the scene with
dated.
him like licking the back of the photo of the little girl's like, okay, could you
Mhm.
make that any? Is that from an old movie?
No, that was the first time you ever actually see him without the makeup on in any of the movies. I think
Huh. Okay. I didn't know if
I could be
I
wrong
did the
on I
whole
could be wrong on
riot stuff.
that,
Well,
but
I mean, just him. You could have made that grosser.
yeah, could not have made
But I mean,
that
I
grosser.
understand. You're right. You're right. You're not wrong that they're supposed to make him a gross person.
Yeah, he's a
It was just a lot
terrible
in a little
human.
bit of time, and it. But there was just I don't know when they made him. There was just a more fun aspect of it during the parts that he felt more charismatic to me. I guess you know what I mean, like that,
Yeah.
and it just felt like with the tone of the movie, I imagine the best thing they were going for was having fun with it. And
Mhm.
again, I'm not trying to make too much out of this and be like overly sensitive about this thing, but it just like it just felt like it got less fun at that point and got a little like just more
Gross.
mean spirited. I know he's a terrible, terrible thing,
Yeah.
whatever it is, but
Yeah.
a monster. But you know what I'm saying, right? Like it
Oh,
just
yeah,
there was just like a little
I'm
more
picking up what you're
fun
laying down.
aspects. When they were like, I'm gonna let Jason do his thing for a little while, like things like that were like a little
Yeah.
more like all right, we're just having fun for some gross action and stuff, and that just started to feel a little, I don't know, more real. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Freddy's a gross character. He is known for his one-liners like that throughout the
Hmm.
series.
Hmm.
And I think as the movie goes on, he's like heating up. You know,
That makes sense.
he's heating up to his grossest possible form. So my favorite scene is Freddy versus Jason round two, which is kind of like the entire ending. Once
Hmm.
it starts with them being in the cabin with the fire surrounding them, like yeah, that is it for me. I love how brutal it feels. I love how practical it feels. Real blood, no CGI, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, it's very grimy, very gross. I appreciate that. That's my favorite scene, favorite moment. What about you, Walker?
It's gonna be Gibbs' dream when the sexual assault is taking place and Jason kills him before Freddy can get to her.
Yeah,
I just think that was the one of the first like deep dives into a dream kind, and it really you got to start experience that, and it made it terrifying. I mean, there was other obviously dream stuff, but I felt like this was the first time you really got to immerse yourself into a dream, and and then again, like it just unlocked the plot of the movie in a fun way. I thought that was just like that. That's yeah, it just made. I mean that was the part I enjoyed the most, and that was the part that made me the most excited to see what was next.
yeah. So maybe you're more excited for this category, Walker. Worst scenes and moments. You were fucking 14, so get over it. Yeah, I know I was 14. We were young, but we had what we had was real, dude. I don't know if this is like worst scenes and moments or one of the funniest lines of the moments, like or one of the funniest lines and moments. It is atrocious, and it's just an example of this like really poorly written script.
It
That's
was. It
ridiculous.
was. It's funny you put that. I wouldn't have expected you to put that because it's such a specific, just a line of dialogue kind of, and
It made me
yeah, I
laugh
noticed
really
it was
hard
like
though.
so Kelly
Like for
Roll. I mean, like it. Does, I don't think Kelly Roll has she ever done anything else.
I'm not sure.
It, I don't know if it's definitely a script issue, but or a dialogue issue, but I didn't love Kelly Rowland in the movie either. I thought I didn't like how she was used. I thought they used her
No.
in this like odd way. I didn't like. She
It's
was
very
so
stereotypical the
mad.
way that they used her.
Yeah, she was so
Yeah.
mad the whole movie, and I'm sure she was given what she was given. But I mean, and her performance was what it was. But yeah, this scene was the first of like, okay, this is going to be a clunky fest of dialogue. Like, it was so
Well,
early in the movie that you're like, okay, is
yeah,
this the
well,
way?
it's literally the second scene I have on here is this really entire
Yeah.
scene. It's the party in Lori's living room. Because first off, like there's music playing. It's not a big party. There's two people in the corner just making out in front of everybody. Like the douchebag boyfriend Trey saying lines like, "Oh, babe, I got a stiff neck. I need someone to massage it." You
Oh man, yeah,
know?
it's so much so fast, so
Yeah,
early in the movie that if you're not into this type of thing and you have, and I we've said this before, this is a typical positive podcast. We love movies and we want movies to be good
yeah.
and we like to talk about the good movies and hopefully like I give this movie a 27. I hope for a movie I give it 27. I think I've spoken pretty positively about. I mean, I've
You
talked about
have,
things I liked and
and
and then I've respect everyone's
the
opinion on it.
the thing is, it's like you can still like something and take the piss out of it, and that's kind of what we're going to be doing in these next couple categories, or a couple of awards is going to be taking the piss out of it, and like the guy with the flask.
Yeah, so I mean, the thing is, it was so early on that, like, for someone like me, that while I did want to, like, I wanted this movie to be fun. I didn't expect to, but I wanted to. It doesn't give me a chance in hell. I mean, when I'm going to this movie and the first line I hear is "You're fucking 14, so get over it." I know we're young, but what we had was real. And then we go into this party where this Trey douchebag is so over the top and ridiculous. And
Ridiculous.
then we've got, is it Blake drinking out of the
Blake,
flask?
yeah,
And
and then putting his
and they're
arm
just
around the
having,
girl, and she's like clearly not into it. He's like, "You want to give me a tour?"
yeah, and it. I did laugh at I laughed at like the I only smoke when I drink, and then she's like, "Well, you drink all the time." It's like, "Yeah, well, that's next." And then I laughed at the one where they're like, "Your house has got a good flow. It's got a good feng shui." And then he goes up to the couch with her and he's like, "What do you know about feng shui?" And I kept laughing at that last night, and Jess was like, "Why are you think that's so funny?" I don't know. It's just funny. It's like you just learned the word.
You gotta go up to Jess one night. Just like, what do you know about feng shui?
There was a couple like funny things, but there was so much like garbage right away that it was like
Yeah,
this it's going to be hard to bounce back from this. It's going to be hard to get
and
me in the mood. And that's what it did. That's why I like the scene I like so much, because it managed to bounce it back to where I was like, I'm still giving this movie a chance. And that's why that middle portion, now I don't like the way it executed. It didn't follow through for me, but that was my journey with the movie. Was I the beginning just, I mean, there was some Freddy stuff that was cool. I like the opener, and I like the there was some cool, like the shadow thing was kind of fun and interesting. I mean, I don't love the scene, but the just the
well,
cut, the effect, and
that's
the con.
that's the next scene. If you want to go ahead and jump to it,
Yeah, yeah.
Blake dad tries to talk to him. Like you have that part, and it's so ridiculous because the dad comes up to him so angry, and is
So
like not even
no,
considering, yeah, not even considering his friend just died. Oh, were you drinking again?
it's like my friend just died. And he's like, you better watch it. It just was like a
Yeah.
video game. It was like an NPC. Like he doesn't. I mean, it
Better
was
watch your
so
tone,
dumb.
young man. And and then the dream, like you're talking about, like the shadow effect, it's really cool. But the thing that I dislike about it is, like, I like the goat because it's a callback to the first movie where you see the goat.
I don't know that, but I forgot about the goat, but I
Yeah.
remember it now.
But the thing I dislike about it is like the when he gets stabbed, he's like, "Oh, I'm okay."
Again,
It's like
it doesn't vibe with the concept of
no,
what happens.
it's it's not that. It's the reaction of letting the audience know that he's okay. Like, "Oh,
Okay.
I'm okay." And he just walks away. That's his only reaction. Is not like, "What the hell is that?" It's, "Oh, I'm okay."
Not strong enough yet.
Yeah.
You know, and this happens like right after the last, and it's just a lot. Like this was the first act I'm talking about, and then him waking up and his dad is just sitting there
Yeah, the head
next
just
to
pops off and blood
him.
spurts out.
Yeah, and I mean that's
He's like
fine, but
drinking, saying, "Trey, I'm gonna get him. If I see him, I'm gonna get him." And then as soon as sees him, he like shits his pants. It's really, really funny. Lori passes out in the middle of the school. I have so many questions about this. Like, how did Mark and Jason Ritter's character, who I'm forgetting his name,
Will
how did they? What is it?
Will
Well, how did they get into the high school and then all of a sudden know where she was? And then you have Mark going up to her in this really creepy fashion, being like, yeah, you better not fall asleep. Coffee's going to be your next best friend, and like it's so creepy. And then like as soon as she sees Will, she like passes out from shock. It's just like
Yeah,
so
and
stupid.
they also the way I almost didn't realize it was Mark because it's not like they framed it in a way that like they went to the school to get Lori to talk to her. It was like he was getting some shit out of his locker and was like, "Oh, I overheard
Right?
you're talking about Fred." It's like, are you in school? Or are
Yeah.
you? I felt like the only reason you're here is to talk to her. Like he was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I know about him." Like if they hadn't shown Mark until that point, that would have made sense as like a I overhear you're talking about Freddy Krueger. That would be one thing. But it's like I felt like you went there to talk to her, or Will did, and I don't know. It
Yeah.
was just an odd. And then for a second, I was like, "That's the same guy, right?" Like
Yeah. It's the
that's
same
Mark,
guy that
isn't it?
was farting on the window the other
Yeah,
in the other scene. You know.
it's pretty crazy. He stole that thing and he was like, "Just help me out of here. I just got drugged." And
Yeah. Smoking with Slug Freddy.
it was so
So
dumb.
this is
This
this is
just seeing
it's
Jessica was
just
like, "This
weird.
is the shit I hate." when I was watching it
Yeah,
with Jess last night. She was like, "I hate this shit."
yeah. Like it's so. Why a slug? And like, why would he just? Why wouldn't he be freaking out? Especially if he's stoned and he's like, I get he's asleep at this moment. I'm assuming he has to be in order to be dreaming what's going on, and that's how Freddy
Right.
possesses him, right?
Yeah. 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 But the whole time I was first of all, I did laugh out loud when he was like, "Should we get a Jaybreak?" I was like, well, "On what planet are you in a scenario where you need to take a Jaybreak?" It's like they're just in the back of the car, like, "Dude, what do you think's gonna happen?" They're just passing a blunt joint around, and it's like, are you
I
not
can't
terrified?
imagine.
Do you
Yeah,
not need
I
a little
cannot.
energy?
Yeah, I could not imagine a worse time to be doing that. I would. I guess the goal is to not freak out, and I guess if like you're someone who partakes and doesn't freak out, then sure. But
Sure.
if you're like the nerdy kid who seemed to not be a stoner, then I feel like that would be the opposite thing of what you would want to do.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't imagine that was. We were talking about it during the movie last night. It's like that just seems like such a bad idea.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like if someone goes to see Hereditary and they're stoned, that's not a
yeah. And
good
let's
idea.
just see in the movie. These kids are actually being haunted in their dreams. These kids are,
Yeah.
and it's not like they're like, "Hey, just let's take a J break so we can stay awake the rest of the night." That's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
So do you have more to add? Because I only have the five. Obviously, we
no, I
talked
mean
about
yeah. I mean,
the
I don't like the second the ending very much. I didn't like basically the Crystal Lake scene
yeah.
in entirety very much. But that I mean, I don't have to put that in the worst scenes or anything. I wouldn't call it the worst scene in the movie. I'm the party in Laurie's living room is gonna
Yeah.
stay with me. I mean that the opener to this movie really gave it very little chance, and it's a testament to how, like I said this already, but the scenes like in Gibbs' dream that brought me kind of wrote me back into it and gave me a little like hope. But it opens so. I mean, yeah, you get and really the over the top kill on Trey, the douchey boyfriend. I know that was in favorite scenes, and it's because like you hate this guy and you enjoy seeing, you're
And that's why
cheering
it
for
kind of
him.
works because you don't like it perfectly sets up these characters who you don't like to get
Hmm.
killed. So you're kind
Yeah, that
of
is
rooting
the
for them to get killed. So it succeeds on that level, but still as a scene as a whole, it's so atrocious in how it's written. But I guess that
yeah
might be kind of the point, maybe?
yeah. I guess it's just again it's from my lens, from my distorted mirror I'm looking through. I the whole beginning, that whole scene with, I mean, I got to include the Kelly Rowland part, that conversation that was at the party too, and
Yeah.
them just all of the dialogue, all of the characters, and then the kill. Yes, you like seeing the asshole get killed, but it was still like a fairly like that was the first big kill of the movie, and it was very over the top, and it felt like okay, like like or that's what we're going like that's the vibe we're going to get in this movie, which I
Yeah.
didn't know what to expect going into it. I wasn't sure if this was going to be more of a Michael Myers thing or more of a Scream thing or more or this type of thing, and which is fine. I just wasn't sure yet, but that on top of this party that was just nuts. I'm trying to think what happened before. I mean, there was a skinny dipping scene before. What was that?
Yeah, it was Freddy setting up a dream for Jason so he could make him
Okay,
come back to life.
I think I didn't understand that for a while too.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense. I get it because I at one point I don't. Okay, I don't think I understood the lore enough at that point to grasp what was going on, and because when she was I understood that he was going to use Jason as his like ticket back in to like kill kids and just drum up the memory of people will think it's Freddy and things like that, and make him on everyone's mind again. But then with her just like in the police station, like Freddy. like when she was like that was his name Freddy, and like that's when she remembered it. I
Hmm.
I didn't. I was like, how did Jason killing everyone in that house make her think of Freddy? I didn't understand that. I get it now. That makes more sense.
Yeah, yeah. I think for me personally, we've been talking about it. I can't, and because of it establishes, even though I do think it's bad. At the same time, I do also think it works to set up these characters who are about to get killed off to
Mm.
make us kind of root for the killings, instead of rooting against it. Because our main characters are Freddy and Jason. I think for me, it's Lori passing out. I just that scene is so ridiculous.
Yeah, Lori's character. I just didn't like a lot of the characters. That's another like Lori was just felt
No.
so like so. I mean, she she just felt so over the top. I mean, I know she's in an extraordinary situation, whatever she's doing, but it just I don't know. I
Yeah,
much prefer Will and Mark.
I get it. Best performance. I mean, to me, it's Robert England, and it's not close. It's like him and everybody else. He
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
for the sake of our other award, I'm gonna just give us something else to say. I'm gonna go Jason Ritter. I he was the
Okay.
first person in the movie that like I said, I was a little concerned. I'm not really including Robert England in this conversation, but or in this story, but the after watching Lori's party in the living or whoever's party in Lori's living room, and then it finally getting to, I was concerned at that point. I was concerned about the movie. I was concerned that this was going to be it was going to be a DNF. I was going to have to call you like, Ben, sorry, we're 24 hours notice, I'm not doing this, because the characters I thought in the performance were so bad. And then Jason Ritter came in with the guy who plays Mark, Zach Zach Ward. Wait, is that his name? I don't remember who plays Mark, but they came in and I was like, okay, these guys are given valiant efforts, and I enjoyed their performance. Will or Jason Ritter also in this scene looks a lot like a young Tom Brady to me,
Yeah,
like a round draft time Tom Brady.
but through here is you see
Hmm.
his dad,
Okay,
John Ritter.
okay.
I for sure see his dad right here,
I
the
really
great
felt
John
I
Ritter.
saw between. I mean, even with his haircut, like back in young Tom Brady days. I mean, he had more of the Tom Brady bone structure later in the career. He was less like baby face than Tom Brady used to be. But we're a big Tom Brady house. Jess is a big fan. So I smile everything like that. I just couldn't get away from it. I just threw that in there. But yeah, I'm gonna go Jason Ritter.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, we're probably going to get into the most loaded category, which is does this make sense? Or I keep saying category. It's award.
Mhm.
The does this make sense award. Why did Freddie think Jason was the best candidate to bring him back into prominence? I think this is pretty simple. One, this has been like a really anticipated movie, so that's why.
Yeah, yeah,
If you look at it from that standpoint, from a story standpoint, I mean, it makes the most sense. He's as brutal as Freddy, and if he goes to that house, people would assume that it's Freddy. So I get it. Plus, I searched hell and I found the soul that would,
yeah, yeah.
that
I
makes
bought
sense.
into it.
Yeah,
I bought into it. Coming from me, I think that means a lot. I, I, I didn't really have a problem with that part of it. I even if it wasn't perfect, I almost like respected the fact that it wasn't perfect. You know, like for
yeah,
like a concept of bringing them together and how he did it. But
it's respectable. How did no one hear Jason's big ass get into the house?
well,
Like he just
he's
walks up the stairs and no one's there. I mean, yes, the couple is having sex with the door open, which also I have questions about.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Just because
so
Ronnie Yu wanted to put more fucking tits.
I guess so, but like,
So you
He
you you
just
mentioned him being recasted as a bigger person. I might have asked this already, but like, was his killing style very similar in the original movies, or was he? I know we got on where he wasn't
very like just
slow and
brutal.
methodical and haunting, or was he more
It's
animated and like
it was
aggressive?
more aggressive. It was more aggressive, but
Because this one he
like
had more of a Michael Myers type vibe.
yeah, it was
In
more
this one,
aggressive.
okay.
It was more aggressive, but still like brutal.
Mhm. Like he just this one he was much more of like a I'm gonna walk after you, not run type of
Yeah,
I'm just tough and more of a
I
Michael
can
Myers aspect, in my
withstand.
opinion, instead of like way less Ghostface, more Michael Myers.
Yeah, now he's definitely not Ghost. Ghostface is like tripping all over shit
I know that's the
all
best.
the time.
Love that.
Why would these people run outside and start screaming instead of calling 911? Also, I love the fact that, there's just a cop sitting out there and his reaction is, "You guys need some assistance?" Just calmly. It's very convenient that he's there, but there's that like, "Do you need some assistance?"
They're
is
probably
really
there because
funny.
there was a noise complaint from all the raging party. Um,
Yeah, that might be it. Yeah, I don't know why they would just randomly run outside instead of calling 911. How did an entire town institutionalize a bunch of people who had connections to Freddy in their dreams? What if some of these people kept it secret? Didn't say anything.
yeah, yeah, you kind of had to buy into it. Another thing, I would kind of add on this note that I might have messed up because I was reading the Wikipedia plot line. I wasn't trying to spoil anything. I wasn't trying to read ahead or anything, but I was trying to at the beginning when I was a little confused on the lore and stuff, I was just
Yeah.
kind of reading along to kind of help me out. And it may or may not have been out of order a little bit where they kind of gave you a full synopsis at the first
Yeah.
paragraph of the plot. So going through this movie, I was watching them give this hypnosil stuff to these kids and I understood what was happening because the first thing in the Wikipedia article was, you know, it's been such and such years since Freddy, blah, blah, blah. And it says the parents have put a lot of effort into erasing Freddy's memory or the memories of Freddy by not mentioning his name, erasing from public records, institutionalizing the kids that do dream of him, and giving them a drug hypnosil to like help them forget or whatever
Yeah.
it does.
And that drug was introduced in I'm pretty sure Dream Warriors, which is a third Freddy movie.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
so it's okay, so I read this in Wikipedia and I was watching the movie and I saw them giving them the drug and stuff and then I saw the dad trying to slip the drug to the his daughter
And
and
it
the
was
whole
just
time
drink your juice. Yeah.
yeah, the whole time they're framing it as this like creepy roofie type scenario and it's like a sneak like thing and the thing I didn't understand the whole time was don't they is it a bad thing don't they want it why don't they just say like hey this is gonna help you forget about those dreams take this drug like
Yeah.
I just like they're like having to sneak like and then they're like they're I don't know they treat this cover up for Freddy like it's a bad thing like maybe it's a band-aid and not a great solution but they're acting like they're like we can't trust anyone they're all trying to save our lives it's like what's the
Yeah.
issue here like give me a full prescription I'll take it every night I don't really but then I was thinking wait, maybe I wasn't supposed to know what that drug was. Maybe I wasn't supposed to know until later on what the drug was, and I just got it spoiled for me too early in reading Wikipedia, and I like incepted it into my brain that Freddy like said that in his opener or something. I wasn't sure, like, but you're saying the drug existed in lore already.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess it is like that. Okay,
Yeah.
that was my biggest like trying to come to grips with it during the movie. Sorry to
No, you're fine. I just think, how would you orchestrate and organize that? Like, what if someone just didn't say anything? Like, it's very common, especially for young men to withhold things and hold things in, right? So,
sure.
like, why would anyone say anything? So
Yeah.
I think you kind of have to let that one. I don't want to necessarily say let it go, but you kind of have to roll with it and not ask too many questions. Because it's like Austin Powers, the "oh no, I've gone cross-eyed" thing. How did Will and Mark get into the school unnoticed? I mean, they eventually get noticed, but they just walk in.
Yeah, we just touched on this. This seems the whole. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess 2003. I mean,
I
trying
wasn't
to
in high
think.
school then, so
I
and
mean, there
in
definitely
fact,
wasn't like
I
metal
was
detectors.
at this point homeschooled, so I didn't know much about it. So
Yeah, I don't know. It's just high school. Movie high school's different. It's always different. I feel like you can also leave the school without anyone noticing. How do you do that? Or
yeah,
not noticing or
I
caring.
feel like you can also hand out pamphlets for parties. Apparently, that's
Yeah,
a
that's
thing.
just the
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, Walker, how familiar are you with cornfield raves? Have you ever been to one? I've been to several.
No, the whole time I was picturing Buckhorn from back home where we used to party by the lake.
Yeah, yeah. That yeah, Buckhorn Lake, just someone throwing a rave. Yeah,
I mean, it looked like a good time. I mean, I could get it, and then me and my buddy could sneak off into the corn to just drink some Everclear together, just separate ourselves from the party, and
yeah.
down some
Man, I need a
Everclear.
break. Whew, sweating too much. The rave is too intense.
Yeah, there's like it's funny how they tried to create like a scene from. I'm trying to think of a movie like trying to think of a good rave in a movie. I'm sure there's like
It's
some
it's
John
it's
Wick
that
stuff or
era of music and movies where like rave music was kind of the thing.
yeah, I'm picturing like the clubs in Swordfish or even
Yep,
some of the
that's
clubs in
another one.
like John Wick can give off the vibe, but
Triple
all
X.
it was like slow motion, a glow stick in slow motion. Like it was just like
Yeah.
so just like this
Well,
is a wild party.
it's again, it's the thing that dates this movie. Like it
Yeah.
reminds me of again, I just mentioned it, Triple X. Movie came out in summer
Mhm.
2002, but it's filled with like rave scenes and like opens up with a rave, like a
Mhm.
metal concert.
Yeah.
Yeah, like cornfield raves. They were the shit back in the day. Back in my day, that's all we did. How did they fake Lori's mom's car accident? Like, wouldn't Lori have more questions? Like, okay, her car seems to be fine. What happened? Did you like purposely wreck it or something like that? Like,
Yeah, I honestly when she was confronting him
so
on
many
the
questions.
steps when she was confronting him on the steps and was like, "So what happened? I need to prove it. Show me an autopsy." I swear to God, I think he like checked his pockets subtly for a second, like when she was like, "Show me an autopsy or a death report, something," and he was just kind of like reached in his butt, was like, "Oh, it's not there." like, why would you have it in your
What if he had just pulled out one? Like he had it ready to go.
No, you know what? To be honest with you, maybe I'm gonna look stupid here. This whole storyline of the movie, I didn't quite understand it. I didn't really understand. I still don't really understand the resolution of it. Like who did kill and really
It was
what was the
Freddy.
point?
Freddy killed the mom and I think possessed the dad to do so, or something along those
Okay,
lines.
okay, okay.
Because
So I
Jason
mean,
Ritter
none of these characters
did
have
see
been in the
him.
movie before, right? In a movie before,
No,
besides Freddy, right? So, but it
yeah,
kind of felt like they had, like there, which is an interesting way. I don't hate it, but it made me feel a little confused. But it's just because I'm dumb. But I was like, when I just felt like a lot of the characters would refer to things that they did in the past that felt like they were talking about a previous movie, which they weren't apparently. Like the death felt like we were like it felt like we were like retconning a death from Freddy 12. You know what I mean? And or like and Will had seen it and like Mark was the little brother of the guy in Freddy 8. Like it just kind of felt like we were continuing a lot of stories that had never happened, which was
and they are, but they're following a whole batch of characters that are new, and I think
yeah.
that's smart from a
Yeah, I didn't mind
scripting
it. It just
standpoint.
was
Yeah,
it wasn't easy to I was the way it was like delivered to me, and with my experience with the lack of experience with the franchises, I've thought I was missing something for a little while. But it wasn't. I
Yeah.
didn't have trouble like getting on board and understanding it. But it I did think for a bit, like I was like, "Man, am I supposed to know who that is?" Because they kind of talk, which I kind of appreciate, like not overly expositioning. I mean, like I've always I hate when it's too like in your face and spoon fed to you. So
Yeah. I do too. Are they dead? Lori says this while seeing people on oxygen while having too much hypnosil. Who would think that? They're being given oxygen.
yeah, they were. That was just dumb.
Very, very.
There was a scene I thought was creepy. This wasn't an exact same scene, but I don't think
The
it
blood
was
in
the
the eyes.
trailer. The
Yeah.
I'm talking about the missing children's posters, like looking at
Yeah.
it almost reminded me of Haunted Mansion or something in Disney. Like it
Oh
was
yeah.
kind of yeah, I like that.
Off topic, but I like that movie. The one that just
I
came
didn't see
out.
it. I'm
It
specifically
it
talking about the ride, but I didn't see the new
oh
movie.
it's a good time. I thought. Final one, and this is I've kind of talked about it. I've hinted at it a little bit. I didn't want to step on it too much. How is Jason scared of water? That's never been a thing for him. He's never been scared of water. It was a big pet peeve for a lot of people who are Friday the 13th fans, myself included. Not at the time when I first watched it, but having like seen all of the movies. Yeah, it's stupid. Yeah, he drowned in a lake, but he's not scared of water. Understand like why they would probably do that, in the sense that this that we could make this work. We can make this be the thing that Freddy can take on, but it just doesn't jive with the rest of the franchise as a whole. So, spoiler alert: the rest of the stuff in this list, at least for me, I can chalk up to poor writing. you know,
Yeah,
but this one is the one that bugs me the most.
yeah. Well, that makes a lot of sense. I didn't realize that that would come off as inconsistent for the character. I mean, having seen this movie in a vacuum, he drowned. He was scared of water. Freddy burned. He's scared of fire. You
Right.
know, like it
It
just
makes
in a
sense.
vacuum, it made sense. So it didn't bother me watching it. Hearing that makes me hate it. um, so yeah, I could see that. That seems like a great choice for the thing that makes the least amount of sense. The I think just for me, I mean, and maybe I'm missing a little bit, but it was just the institutionalizing the kids who have the dream and being able to like get on top of it like that. Maybe it's a small maybe buy into it, but then the whole concept
Being
of
able to make a drug and give it to
or
the
just that like it was portrayed as this like odd job, like this like dark secret the town had, not the secret of Freddy, but the that they were covering it up. And like, I mean, I guess they didn't want the I guess that makes sense. They don't want the kids to know about it because then the kids would know about it. I don't know. It
yeah
just felt like they were all like people were mad at the parents for being bad people and like drugging their kids and hiding the truth from them when it's like they were trying to save their lives. They
yeah.
were trying to not keep them from getting murdered.
I think maybe not institutionalizing the kids. I think if there's a way to not institutionalize them but give them the hypnosil, then that's the
Mm.
way to go about it. But the institutionalizing obviously is the messed up part of it. But then again, if they and it's like the character Mork says, I just messed up their entire plan because I just let everyone know about Freddy and now he's gonna feed off of the fear and now he's gonna come back and obviously, he gets got.
Yeah.
Like I said, we've given our does this make sense award. All right. Moving on to MVP award. To me, again, double dipping here. Robert Englund. He goes out with a bang. This is his final performance as Freddy Krueger, and he goes out with a bang. And it was a pleasure to see him in Stranger Things season 4.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd give it to Robert England too. I mean, I mean, I've said what I said about the character, about the portrayal and the performance, but I mean, he He's an iconic character, and he wrapped
Mhm.
it up here, and he absolutely showed up for work. He did not phone it in. I'll give
No.
him that. I mean, he committed to the role, committed to the movie, committed to the script, and I think he has had an iconic run as the character, and it'll be remembered forever.
Yep. Cemented a career, that's for sure, and a legacy. At the end of the day, Walker, this is going to be hard for you. Why would you recommend this movie?
I guess I would recommend it. I mean, I would recommend it to you if I knew you hadn't seen it. I mean, if you're a big time horror fan, and if you're a completionist and you are big fans of both franchises, my guess is you'll have a lot of fun with these movies. I don't imagine many people are going to watch it and be like, that was excellent. But
Yeah.
I think if you are into the over the top campy stuff, if that's your style, if you like just badass, just crazy kills and things like that, I think you'll enjoy it. And absolutely, I mean, I won't be recommending it to you, but if you've already seen it, if you watched it in middle school and it just takes you back to a, you use the word time capsule a lot. Like if it can bring you back to a time that you think of fondly, then I absolutely can understand why you'd enjoy it. But yeah, I mean, I'd probably keep the recommendations to big time Freddy and Jason fans, big time horror fans, big time camp fans. Um, yeah, that's who I would recommend it to.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same ballpark as you. Like, I don't think I would recommend this to people like yourself, which is why I feel bad for
I had fun
kind of
talking about
picking
it.
this one. But like for people like myself, for people who are fans of this franchise, people who saw this movie when it came out and enjoyed it then, watching it now, it kind of takes you back to that time, kind of like you were saying. Um, I think this movie, again, like I said at the beginning of the show, it succeeds in its premise, which is Freddy versus Jason and their fights. And I think, you know, for a movie to at least succeed in its premise, then that means it's doing something right. And that's why I would recommend this movie, Walker.
Well, great. I think that'll do it for this week. It's
Yeah,
another
man.
deep dive in the books for us.
Another one.
But thanks for joining me. Thanks for talking to me. Thank you all again for as always for listening on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks for watching if you're catching us on YouTube. We'll be back next week with another weekly episode to talk more things movies. But let us know in the comments what you thought of Freddy versus Jason or what you think of the franchises in general. Um, be sure to subscribe for movie talk each week. And with that said, this has been in Walker, and we'll see you next time.
Bye bye.